Hello, everybody, and welcome to the D&A Podcast. I'm here with my good friend and colleague Amber, starting off this podcast type thing that we're doing just as a hobby and everything. You want to say hello, Amber?
Hi, everyone.
Hey, okay, so me and Amber, we're really good colleagues, we're really good friends. We really enjoy talking about like certain types of topics, like politically scientific topics, maybe even some philosophy in there. And so we decided that one day while we were working, we were just like, we should do a podcast about this because we talk about this stuff a lot.
We
And
just rant and rave at work,
oh
and we
yeah,
have different opinions on things. And so it's kind of an interesting view, because he has his view on one way, and I have my view on different things and our different opinions. He's younger than me, I'm older than him, he's male, I'm
yeah,
female. So we have different experiences in
oh
life.
yeah.
So we thought it would be a fun podcast.
Yeah. I'm a young upcoming college student. Amber is a mother of a one child, and so like we have quite a bit of different backgrounds, like really different backgrounds. I've grown up in a pretty crowded and populated suburb down in Orange County, California.
And I
And
grew up in a small town.
yeah,
Right.
so I
So.
think it was really interesting because I think that's one of the reasons as to why like we became really close friends because like you and me, Amber, we talk about these very sensitive and controversial topics, yet we're not at all trying to talk to each other aggressively or like try
Mhm.
to point each other's faults out in our things. I do believe this is the case that should be for most conversations, is that what we essentially try to do is to learn things from each other rather than
Mhm.
prove each other's right. And
And
so
yeah, you're absolutely right. I feel like that we do kind of get heated sometimes,
ah,
but only sometimes,
well,
only with some
no,
topics.
well,
But
you're still hanging out with
yeah,
me.
we're
So,
still hanging out. We're still friends,
all
and
right.
so that's kind of like a lot of people nowadays can't seem to do that. They can't seem to have an intellectual conversation and have different opinions and be friends.
Yeah, I find that a lot of people are not only afraid but quite annoyed when that happens
Yeah,
because
exactly, and
it
like.
sort of challenges their own like their own viewpoints and their own axiomatic. Oh,
Oh, I'm
okay. So second part of the DNA podcast after that interruption, that rude interruption we had.
I'm sorry. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Uh,
I'm a mom, so I have to have my cell phone
okay.
ready
All right.
just in
So
case.
this isn't the start. This is the first intro part. So it's
It
just gonna
wasn't an emergency. It was a chocolate emergency. My
chocolate.
daughter wanted to know if she could have a piece of chocolate.
Yeah. Definitely got to call mom for that one.
Yeah. Always call mom.
Okay,
So.
well, I mean, I guess we're not going to do the whole editing thing, but that's totally fine. So from what we were talking about before, I believe what was essentially being talked about is that how nowadays people they don't like to have intellectual conversations anymore.
Well, it's not. They don't like to have intellectual conversations. They don't like to have conversations where that they have different viewpoints where they like you have to agree with my view. I feel
Yeah,
like that's what most people want, and if you don't agree with them, then they don't want to have that
yeah.
conversation.
It's very much like it's very rare for me to find someone who is like. Well, first of all, I've talked to a lot of smart people. They're
Hmm.
very intelligent people. They have a very strong viewpoints and very educated on certain topics when you talk about with them. But what I find is that even people that are like that, they very much are viewing the conversation as sort of like an intellectual battleground rather than something that should be used and utilized as a avenue for new information being harvested. Like
Hmm.
people are extraordinarily complex in a way that they know certain things that you don't. And even if you're talking to someone that, let's say, they're a complete moron, they're talking like 95% of the things that are coming out of their mouth are complete babble and
Hmm.
nonsensical things. But you have that 1 5% that you did not know that can save you some time or some money or like anything in your life. Could save your life even. That
Hmm.
1 5% is extremely valuable. So
Exactly. And I feel like a lot of people are kind of closed off, because this person doesn't agree with me or doesn't see things my way. So I'm not going to listen. I'm not
yeah.
going to take advice. Where, you don't know what they've been through. You don't know their experiences, that kind of thing. And like you said, they could end up either saving you time, money, or whatever in the
Yeah.
future if you're just open to what they say.
Yeah, you listening is a huge skill. But also, I kind of wanted to go off a little bit and just talk about the origins of this podcast and about the name. Like we
Hmm.
named this podcast, or at least we came up with the name like 5 minutes before we started recording this.
Yeah.
It's the D&A Podcast, which is Dylan and Amber. I thought it was a nice little snippet or name that we came up with because
Hmm.
I'm quite the difference between me and Amber is that I'm quite scientific. I try to keep things as logically and scientifically based as possible. While Amber, not to say that she's illogical. She's very logical. She knows how to like completely articulate her arguments very well.
Hmm.
So that she goes more off of instinct and emotion, probably, I would say.
I would say so. Instinct and emotion, and even past experiences.
Yeah, yeah. So you're more the romantic type.
Yeah, I'm romantic and he's logical.
Yeah, yeah. So like, I think it's a really nice conversation. So we got some topics here that we wanted to discuss. We had wrote some down. First things we were talking about was that we could talk about different types of things. There's certain type of scientific topics, like we were talking about the Mars mission that was being planned for 2030. I think we read an article about that the other day. There's the wall.
The wall with Trump.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of a
touchy topic,
you know, and like we have two different views on it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but we still can be friends and listen to each other.
Yeah, of course. All right, and then we also have like, you know what? It's another topic. We're talking about vaccinations nowadays.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one that we've discussed in the past.
Oh, those anti-vaxxers, mate. I cannot understand them in the least. It's all cognitive dissonance as well, and it makes me wonder because like just to go off this vaccination topic, is like I've been very curious nowadays between the correlation about people's belief systems and their actual IQ, because for most people, well, maybe not most people, but some people have disagreed with me about the actual let's say measurable accuracy of IQ in intelligence. And I for one, because I study psychology just on my side for as a hobby, so I'm not going to claim to be an expert on the subject, but I do know IQ in social sciences and psychological sciences is the most accurately measured, defined term that we have in that space. But I've also found that people that are very, very intelligent, very, very, let's say you could guess that they have high IQs, still have sort of non-scientific based beliefs. So, and I'm curious as to if that these anti-vaxxers are just believing this because they have low IQs, or is it because there's something else going on? They just aren't willing to give up their predispositions to this type of viewpoint on vaccines.
The thing is that they have every right not to vaccinate their children. You know, they do. They have every right not to vaccinate, but it's kind of like, is that the most responsible thing to do?
Well, first off, it's not their most responsible thing to do.
Well, in their opinion, it's very responsible. They're protecting their children.
Yeah, well, the argument is that from my point of view, because you said that I don't know whether or not that people would have the right not to have vaccinate their children, because it actually puts other people's children in danger.
It completely does, but and like I am pro-vaccination.
Yeah,
like
of course.
I'm just giving a food for thought kind of thing, kind of going against what Dylan's saying with the vaccinations. I do agree with Dylan completely. I vaccinate my child. I completely agree on vaccinations. But, as a parent, I would want that right, to make that decision, whereas most people believe that you should just be required to vaccinate your children.
I do believe it should be mandatory. I completely believe that case because, there are a couple of things about that. Well, first off, it puts other people's children in danger because these vulnerable children to these types of disease, like, for example, like measles had came back after, almost, I'm not sure how long ago. I'm pretty sure
it was a recent thing. It was very recent where measles ended up coming back over here.
We thought we eradicated
on the West Coast. Yeah. Well, the shocking thing was that a certain percentage of the kids that ended up with measles were not vaccinated, yet there were 2 cases where these children were vaccinated for measles still got measles.
They probably got into contact with the non-vaccinated children, though, right? Well, I imagine that's how probably it was the case because...
I don't know if this, for 100% sure, this is just what I've heard from, other parents when we talk, is that the kids that were vaccinated for measles who still ended up getting measles, vaccines affect each person differently, and there was just something that even though the kids were vaccinated for measles, they still got measles. And the vaccination didn't work for them specifically. Yeah. And each person is different. The vaccines will affect you in different ways. Yeah. And for some reason, the vaccine didn't work for these kids, even though they had been vaccinated and they still got measles.
Yeah, and I still think, even if the kids in particular, that the ones that didn't get vaccinated, had, whether or not they got into contact with the kids that did get vaccinated or not, I do realize, vaccinations aren't an end-all be-all for diseases. They're just a preventative measure. There's no guarantee that it will actually prevent, even though it increases the probability substantially that you will not get that disease because like vaccines, like the science is pretty basic. I think everyone has like a bit of basic knowledge on how they do it. They basically just take a dead virus or a very inactive virus of the in the vaccine. They inject it into the child so the child's immune system can recognize the virus, and so once they see it again, they can destroy it immediately.
They can attack it.
Yeah, they can destroy it immediately. So,
Mm-hmm.
but there is cases where like where that just isn't up to par, and this kids still get infected, like with this, let's say the influenza
Mm-hmm.
or whooping cough or things like that. But
Mm-hmm.
it's also the case as well that if we were to vaccinate more children, the virus itself would have such a hard time propagating that it could just be completely eradicated from the earth. And I think that's what happened with measles. We'd assumed that since had been no measles cases for like, I don't know how many decades, probably like 3 or 4 decades, maybe even longer than that.
You know, that's something we definitely have to look up and see.
Me and Amber are no experts on these subjects.
Yeah, we're not experts. This is just our our views and opinions on life of what we've experienced.
No, yeah, but like going back to what I was talking about. So like the measles, we assumed that it was eradicated for like a good number of decades, I believe. And then because that these non-vaccinated children were kind of being infected with these vaccines, with these viruses again, these viruses had now a new opportunity to propagate, and so now there's more viruses out there in our ecosystem that can be spread to different kids. And so I think that's one of the main reasons as to why vaccination should be mandatory, because it allows viruses that are dangerous like this, that affect children, to propagate and still get into contact with even vaccinated children that maybe the vaccines just didn't quite work out for them as much. But still, if more kids were vaccinated, that still decreases the probability that they will get infected, because that virus is no longer as prominent as it was before.
And see, this is just like, it's a touchy topic, because I do agree that you should vaccinate your kids. Like, I mean, as a parent, you want to protect your children, so you really need to protect them from these diseases, these things that are out there that, and like, we always say, oh, they're no longer here, they shouldn't be around. We've been vaccinating for decades now, but the thing is that, yeah, but it can still come back.
Yeah.
There's always that one person that didn't vaccinate, or, but with this topic, it's like, should it be mandatory or should it not be mandatory?
Yeah.
Because as a parent, I don't want the government or someone telling me how to raise my children. I decide what's best for my children. And I understand where these parents who don't vaccinate their children, they believe in their views that they're protecting their children. I don't agree with it.
Yeah.
But this is where we kind of come to a crossroads right here, like with the...
Yeah. And what I would say is that, like, in the very foundation of it, it's a public safety issue. It's a public health issue.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that needs to be addressed, definitely, no matter like what your views on it is. We need to have a discussion, and in the end, I think that the legislative system would be able to determine that. If we even get some representatives that would like to impose some laws, or not impose, but like put forth some laws or some bills into Congress, or to your state Congress, perhaps, if it needs to go through the state first. To have that happen, because unless that happens, then it's just going to be a topic that people talk about and nothing will get done. So people really need to vote on this issue. So
the thing is that, I do agree that we as parents need to make that decision and decide if vaccinations are appropriate for our children, which I do feel like they are, but I don't agree with the government coming in and telling me you have to vaccinate your child. I really don't agree with that. I want my rights as a parent to decide what's best for my children. And I agree with vaccinations, and I understand people who don't agree with vaccine. Oh, I don't really understand it, honestly.
Yeah.
I feel like you should protect your children against that. And as a parent, you are responsible for that. But I can see the point in, I don't want to be told how to raise my children. And, it's just a really, I'm kind of split here, because it's like, I don't want someone coming in and telling me you have to do this as a parent, where it should be my decision as a parent, so,
I
but
guess.
Do vaccinate your children.
Yeah.
I totally agree on vaccinations.
Vaccinate your children.
Yes.
We do not need any more measles or polio or anything
Be
like that.
responsible. Do the research,
Yeah. And so, like, that's really where it divides, It needs to be, like, is this something that individuals should decide for themselves, or should, like, the actual political spectrum if that is to be voted on, because we are a democracy. So if people were to vote for representatives that would put forth bills to be passed through Congress about these types of things, then I guess we'll just have to wait and see until that happens. But until now, I guess like this new anti-vaxxer things is also just a new thing relatively, so it might take a couple of years before we're even able to see if there's any legislation that's being put forth that Congress can vote on, or if people want to do referendums as well. It's really just up to the population that votes on it. So
well, I do know schools are getting more aggressive with the requirements of vaccinating your children. Like you have to provide proof, at least for my daughter's school, to get her enrolled. I had to provide proof that she had been vaccinated.
I had to do whooping cough and things like that. I would agree with that as well.
Yeah. So I mean, like I said, it's a touchy subject for most people. So
all right, well, I think we pretty much got like both of our consensuses on it, or like our viewpoints. But so I guess we can go on to a different topic here. So we got some other ones. We were talking about the Mars mission. We were talking about the wall, which we can discuss. We were also talking about dating, which I think was something.
Dating, yeah.
That's a bit of a
this one will be fun. Okay?
Weird transition.
Yeah, it is kind of it's a strange transition. We went from like very controversial
to like
topic
sort of casual.
Light. So we kind of wanted to talk about dating because Dylan is 20.
Yes. Yes.
He's only 20.
Small child.
He's and he's into the dating scene now. And I'm 26. I'll be 27 this year, but I have a little more experience in dating, but I did end up getting married at a very young age.
Yeah.
So
yeah, Amber is married. How's your husband, by the way?
Oh, he's wonderful.
Oh, great.
He's absolutely
fantastic.
Wonderful. Yeah.
That's really good. So yeah, but I am sort of new on the whole dating scene. I've only been living on my own away from my parents for almost a year now. Around 10 months at this point. So I've just been hanging out. I do know that one of the things that needs to be told is that if you want to go out dating with people, if you actually want to go out and see and put yourself out there, you actually really need to like literally go to places to meet people. Like you can't just stay in your room all day playing video games, which is pretty much what I did when I was in California. But now, yeah, I go to games club. I hang out with friends. I try to make sure I have a good social network where I can meet new people in, and it's mainly I think that my social these social events I go to, particularly like games club, like college clubs are a great place to do that. Well, I'm not saying that they should be the only place to do that, and certainly you shouldn't use the club solely for that purpose. But just to go and meet new people, right? Like you go to your college campus, trying to figure out what events that are going on, just go put yourself out there, and don't try to like overthink it as well, because Amber has told me many times that I'm an overthinker.
He goes on these tangents and he just goes in a circle chasing his tail, and I have to be like, Dylan, calm down.
Well, like I put a lot of thought into like this whole dating thing.
It's a good thing to put some quite a bit of thought into it, but not to the point where it stresses you out.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, well.
But yeah, this is sort of like I know that you were really excited about this topic in particular. So what do you want to discuss about it?
Well, what I wanted to discuss is that when I was in the dating scene, we didn't have apps and things like that. We didn't get on an app.
That's a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah, exactly. Like we didn't go on an app and meet people. We did have Facebook, and in fact, that's how I did meet my husband. And I know it's kind of silly. We went to the same school. We have met each other in school. We knew of each other, but we just didn't we had different friends group. He hung out. He was very athletic and into sports and that kind of thing. And I was kind of like a band nerd. I was in band, and when he was playing football, I was in the stands, playing music. Nice. So
yeah, and Amber was telling me that especially when they were first starting to see each other, he was pretty ambitious and very, very determined to put a ring on your finger. I was told.
He was very, very determined.
Yeah.
It was. I do feel bad about this, but I did reject him probably 100 times.
Oh no, he kept coming back though.
He did. He was very determined. No matter how many times I was like, no, he never gave up. That's for sure.
This could be a good lesson. You can chase people, just don't do it don't overdo yourself. Maybe what is the
Yeah,
case?
yeah. It worked out for him,
Yeah.
but it might not work out for
Yeah.
you.
It
So
is.
don't get obsessive
Yeah,
about
it's definitely
it.
dependent on person to person. We're definitely not advocating anyone stalk anyone else.
Yeah, don't
So
stalk.
don't
Don't
no
stalk.
no. But
Like,
like some people it is the case that like I think that a lot of women actually do find that very attractive, where the man is actually kind of sort of ambitious and determined to go after this one person, or like to like really try to make sure that the other person knows that about their sort of like their intentions or something like that. Maybe you'd be able to elaborate on that a bit more.
well, it's kind of like, okay, so like me and my husband went to the same high school, and like I said, we knew of each other, but we had different friends groups. So we never really talked to each other that much, like we see each other in the halls, like that was about it. And then he randomly like found me on Facebook and asked me to go to a party with him. And I was like, no, I was like, no, I'm not going to a party with you. I barely know you,
And he's gonna
so
take you to a party by yourself, and
yeah,
like
well, it's a small town. That's what we did. We went out to parties or bonfires up in the mountains or that kind of stuff. That was like our social stuff that we did. We didn't have a lot going on in our little tiny town, so a party was a big deal.
Yeah.
But I was like, when he did ask me to go to the party, I was nervous because I didn't really know him. I knew he was very athletic and really nice guy and smart and stuff like that. But I was hesitant. And I told him, I said, we were like chatting on Facebook, he asked me to a party and I said no. And I said, well, you can take me on a date instead.
Yeah.
Like, you could take me on a date. And he actually came over that night. And it wasn't necessarily a date, but we went on a really nice walk. We walked around our little tiny town and we talked to each other, kind of got to know each other. And he came over and we watched like part of a movie, and then he had to go to the party. So
Yeah. And Amber is definitely more experienced in this regard. I've only started living on my own, like I said, for around 10 months now, so I haven't had too many opportunities to actually go and I guess sort of find my own social networking group where I can go out and date people. And I've had a couple of times where I've been on some dates, but they never, especially in Oregon, they never really seem to go anywhere. There's been some complications and things like that have been happening, but that's fine. I still have plenty of time, only being 20. I think one of my friends did tell me that that the dating pool that you have pretty much starts to rise up until the point where you're 30, and that's when it plateaus, and then after probably around maybe mid 30s it starts to decline. So so you still have, especially if you're young, like if you're young, and even if you're even a bit older, there's always people out there that are probably out there looking for still that person to go out with and maybe even have a relationship with, because like I know intimate relationships are pretty important for many people. So
well, it's like what I wanted to discuss about this whole dating scene is that like our big thing in like for dating was like Facebook or meeting each other
Right.
at school,
I've
whereas you have quite a bit more options. You have all of these apps and websites, and I mean, you're not only do you have like these clubs in college, classes,
Yeah.
work,
I never
now you have these apps and like dating
Yeah.
sites that you can go to, which we did not do,
Yeah, and admittedly, like for me,
Mhm.
I've tried these apps a lot. Like I've gone
Oh,
through
really?
many of them. Yeah, I've gone through like Tinder and OkCupid and like eHarmony or
So
whatever
tell
things.
me about this, because I've
Um,
never experienced, like I said, like me and my husband were high school sweethearts,
yeah.
We met in high school and we've stayed together ever since.
Yeah.
And
I don't like them.
you don't like
I
them.
don't like them at all. I mean, the thing is about me is I'm a very personal person. I value very much very interpersonal, intimate moments with people face to
Mhm.
face. I think that that's something that's crucial for dating, and it doesn't mean that you can't have that with a person that you meet on those apps. Like I've seen many people that are dating from
Mhm.
those apps, such as like Tinder and things like that. It's just the thing is with me is that like if I'm texting someone on an application, it just doesn't have as much. There's not as much motivation. There's not as much like interpersonal communication between each other, like with
Mhm.
body language and facial expressions, and getting really to have that first impression.
Yeah.
I really think that first impression is very, very important for most of the times when you meet anybody, even like dating partners, friendships, business relationships, things like that. So like I prefer to actually go out and meet the person rather than finding them on the app. But I have had people text me on the app, and I've matched with people, like not many people,
Mhm.
although, but it's just a thing where like you'd be texting them, and it's just like you can get anyone. First of all, it could be absolutely anyone because it's not the app. Most of those apps base you off of how who you like and what you basically you see their picture and you're just like you like them or not. They have a profile and everything.
Yeah,
with a description.
I've never been on these dating apps at all. Like
Yeah.
I said, but I always hear about people like swipe left, is it, or
No, yeah.
swipe right? I don't know. Like, what's the swipe left is like and swipe right is not like, you know?
No. So the way that it works essentially is that this is also especially with Tinder, because I think Tinder was probably the most popular one for that. Maybe not for dating.
Oh, so it's so funny that you mentioned Tinder because me and some friends were talking and I thought Tinder was a hookup site.
It kind of is.
It kind of, well, they told me, no, it's a dating site. And
well,
I thought it was...
Hookup, dating, I mean, the most people I've seen or I've heard of, they use Tinder as sort of like a hookup site. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then with my limited knowledge, I was like, oh, so is Grindr the hookup site then? And then they all just laughed at me.
Grindr would be the homosexual version of Tinder.
Yes, I did.
Which is a very good idea. Like, I mean, I don't know. My opinion on like Tinder and Grindr is a bit mixed.
Yeah.
I've seen mixed reviews of people that are just using it for these types of hooks up things, and other people that have used it and actually have really long-standing relationships from it. So it's like it really just depends, I guess, on who you match with, maybe.
Yeah. Who you meet, like, is it the right timing?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, with me, that close first impression encounter with someone is much more valuable. But with things with Tinder is that it's very like. I don't know. It just seems a bit off with me because like I don't know. I'm not the same as most people I've met in terms of like dating like this. I'm actually pretty choosy about the people that I want to date. Like for example, like if I meet someone and I have like a 10-minute conversation with them, and pretty much almost not all the time, but like a good portion of the time when I'm talking to them, I determine whether or not I would be interested in dating them. Right then and there.
Oh,
like
I see.
that first initial look, like if I see them and I'm like, okay, they're pretty attractive. Like they're actually really pretty. They're decent. They're decently attractive. I really want to. They're attractive and I would want to approach them. I go up and talk to them and they have a conversation with me and I'm just thinking to myself, well, you are pretty much as dumb as a door brick.
Oh,
well, maybe.
Well, I know what you're saying, but so you judge them within the first 10 minutes of getting to know them.
Well, not completely.
Well, not like the whole view, but just in the dating.
No.
Aspect.
I'm not. To clarify just a little bit, I don't judge their entire character because meeting someone for 10 minutes is not at all even close to the amount of time that you would need to actually know a person completely. But but personally, like for me, whenever let's say I've known them and talked to them for like an hour, what I determine is whether or not we'd be a good match because I basically go off of like, do we joke well together? Do we laugh a lot? Like are me and them kind of hitting off with like, if I tell a joke and they start to laugh a lot and they tell a joke and I start to laugh a lot and like is there some sort of connection comedic way and then could we have a serious conversation? Could we talk about something that is like, like deep in their personal life or like maybe their political views, there can be controversial topics because we're having this podcast. I do enjoy talking about those topics, and if I have someone that I can date that also I can talk to them with without them getting completely defensive and overblown about it, then that's extremely valuable to me as well. So I do enjoy having a very very like just a very nice relationship where I get to joke and talk seriously with the person and then just enjoy their company,
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Most people, I mean, I don't know about most people, but I find that a lot of guys in particular, they date women and they just sort of they're not as choosy, perhaps, maybe not as much as me, but I'm not that much of a masculine person, so I'm not sure if that plays into it. What do you think?
Well, I don't know because I'm not a male. Like I'm a female. Just to clarify.
Just to make sure that wasn't clear.
Just to clarify in case that was confusing. No, but I just only have what my perspective is, and like I have very limited dating. Whereas you kind of have quite a few more options than I did. Like, I was in high school and I met my husband and we have been together ever since. I did date, a couple guys here and there. I had some serious relationships that did not work out. But like I said, being in a small town, you know everyone and you kind of like, you're talking with your friends, you're like, oh, I went on a date with this guy, and then like, oh, I went on a date with him, or, oh, I've been with that guy before, it's when you live in a small town, you basically kiss everyone, you know? Like,
Wow.
it's
A lot,
embarrassing,
a
you
lot
know?
of, I mean, you sort of get, you got to try out every single dish before you find your favorite, I guess,
Yeah.
I mean, that's not, I'm no judgment here. That's totally fine. I wish I could do that.
Well,
I'm
it's
just
just like
kidding.
when you're so limited in your
Yeah.
area, you have a small pool to choose from,
No, yeah.
You don't have an ocean,
It seemed,
you have a pond.
and it seemed to work out for you. Yeah.
It did work out. I really, when my husband was, trying to get me to date him and, actually be serious, I did not think, I didn't want to because I felt like we were too different, like he's very athletic and popular and, had this huge group of friends, everyone liked him. Whereas I was more quiet and meek and I did have a lot of different friends in different kind of group settings. I never really had a specific group of friends,
Mm-hmm.
and I was kind of a bit of a loner at times. And don't get me wrong, I had some wonderful friends. Like I really did have some wonderful friends in high school. But I feel like in high school, I wasn't necessarily myself, I was too self-conscious. And then now that I'm older, I'm okay with being myself. Like, I'm perfect. Like, now that I think about myself back in high school, I'm like, I wish I hadn't cared so much because it really didn't matter. It really did not matter. Whereas my husband has always been himself. Like, he's very outgoing and boisterous and funny, and people just really kind of draw to him. And so when he was pursuing me, I was like, we're so different, it's not gonna work, and he was very determined.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So eventually I did give in and we started dating, and then it was perfect. And it just clicked.
And then you guys had your daughter and everything, and everything worked out.
Beautiful little girl. Yeah. So.
And so there's also something, just to go off a little bit, because we're almost out of time, but I think we can go for a little bit longer, because I think we should probably, it's a nice segue in from like kind of a casual, personable topic order to like some like the psychological implications or maybe the scientific implications that I had. Because you and me, we had a disagreement, probably like one of the first intellectual conversations we had, where we were discussing the differences between the way men and women judge their potential mates.
Oh, yes, I remember this.
Yeah. Just as a small summary, like I've watched a lot of just on my own time videos on psychology. It's a subject I'm very interested in. I think it holds a lot of grounds, despite being somewhat like a very quasi pseudo-scientifical endeavor. Even though they've made a lot of progress in terms of from Sigmund Freud and everything. But basically, what it was is that I had explained to Amber that essentially the two differences between men and women and how they judge their mate is that women seem to judge their mates based off of it's partly socioeconomic status, but then it's also like the ability to be ambitious and aggressive and have like that sort of capacity to like make their will be done. Like they have to have a determination to make sure that the way that they want the world to go is the perfectly the case, and that you sort of need to have an aggressive edge to that. And then for men, the way that they would judge their mates is essentially like youth and fertility. It's like it's very visual, like initially too. I'm not saying that this is the only thing that people judge their mates for, because after they meet the people and they start to have like conversations and communicate with each other, they find that they're not compatible at all and they hate each other's guts. So, but initially when people meet each other, that's how they sort of find a way to question, like, okay, are you a potential mate? Do I think I can date you? Do I think I want to like sort of pursue an intimate relationship with you? The initial thought of first seeing the person or first meeting the person within like the first 30 minutes is like, men, are they attractive? Women, are they competent? I think at least that's what I've been told to psychologically, the initial attraction to people. So what do you think about that?
Well, see, I remember I kind of like disagreed with you, at least on the women's part, about judging off of their social economic status, because I was like, when I met my husband, we were in high school and he was living on his own. And I remember the first time I went over to his house, his apartment was flooded, and he lived on a deflated air mattress with a broken TV, and that's not very,
no.
That's not very,
doesn't indicate high economic status in that regard.
Exactly. And I mean, it was just nothing against him, living on his own, trying to take care of himself and his family and stuff like that. And but I still found him very attractive. Like, I didn't judge him off of his, like, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Like, when you first walk in, you're like, oh, really? Like, but getting to know him and everything, and like being in that kind of experience, it showed me that even though he didn't come from a lot, he was still worth it.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
was
I
completely
think
worth
I
it.
think
Like,
what attracted probably you in particular, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but
mhm,
is like not his material
mhm,
properties, like not his material things that he had, like his
mhm.
money or anything, but his willingness to be ambitious and determined and somewhat like courageous. You know?
Exactly. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's something I did find very attractive. He's the type of guy that does not give up.
Yes.
Like he really tries to better himself and better his family and things like that, and that is what is very attractive. Like, we're that type of people where we climb that ladder, we get a few steps up and then we get knocked down 5 steps, and then we climb up, 3 steps, and
Yeah.
then get knocked down 4 steps.
That's a good
But
summary of life, by the way.
yeah, but we're always trying. And, as a female, you don't want to have someone that is going to give up.
Oh yeah.
You want someone in it for the long haul, and life is hard.
Yeah.
It's not easy,
It's a good motivation for men to do that as well.
Well,
Females.
females.
There you go. So,
So,
but yeah, I mean, I think that was a good way to end that off.
yeah, not
Amber.
bad.
Yeah.
Not bad. Not bad for our first topic.
Oh my gosh, I actually had a ton of fun, dude. What do
Me
you
too.
think?
I had a lot of fun. I
Yeah.
think hopefully we weren't just ranting and raving too much and made it entertaining for the people listening.
Yeah,
So.
I really hope that people that are listening in, if you have any feedback or any criticisms for me and Amber, not particularly just on the, you can talk about the topics. Please leave in the comments about your own opinions on the topics we've discussed, but also if anything about to make the podcast better, any criticism about that, how we should structure it, what we should talk about, different types of subjects that you think we should address. Like, more than welcome to add in the comments about that
yeah,
as well.
yeah, please
So,
do. And we're this is all new for us, so
yeah,
we'll get better with time.
Yeah, we're planning to make this like a weekly thing, right?
Yeah.
Maybe like one podcast a week. I mean,
that
yeah,
sounds
it's sort of like a hobby type thing, but I think we can probably establish that.
Yeah, because we're gonna make a hobby out of our ranting and raving.
Oh, yeah.
We always do.
I mean, if we're gonna do it, we might as well have an audience. Hopefully,
yeah, might as well. So,
yeah. So.
Yeah, and please put in some other topics that you guys would like us to discuss.
Oh yeah, we will also try to look up more things about this stuff to educate ourselves a bit more on this
was
type
just
of
our
things.
first one, and we
Yeah.
were kind of like, what do we talk about?
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I guess if that's everything, is there anything else that you want to add, Amber, before I put out the outro here?
No, I think we're pretty good. Yeah. I think
Okay.
we're good.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in on the D&A podcast with Dylan and Amber.
Mhm.
If you enjoyed our podcast, please leave a like on the video itself and give us a comment. Giving us any feedback you like, negative, positive. We always welcome anything. But I guess if that's everything, then I guess we're out then.
Yep.
All
Have
right.
a nice day.
Have a good one.